In the heart of a desolate canyon, a U.S. Marine's life hung by a thread. Tied to a jagged rock wall and barely conscious, he had no hope left until three K9s appeared. What they did next would not only save his life, but remind us all of the extraordinary bond between a soldier and his dog. The sun beat down relentlessly on the arid canyon, where a team of U.S. military K9s and their handlers had embarked on a routine training exercise. The air was dry, the dust swirling in gusts as the handlers gave their dogs commands, and the dogs responded with precision. The bond between man and animal was visible in the fluidity of their movements, as the dogs darted from one end of the rocky terrain to the other, sniffing the air and scanning for hidden objects. But today, something felt different. Rex, the lead German shepherd, halted abruptly, his ears snapping forward. His keen nose twitched, and his body froze in place. The handler, Corporal Hayes, saw the change in his dog's demeanor instantly. Rex was on to something important. He gave the command, and the dog surged forward, sniffing at the ground, then lifting his head toward the canyon wall. His tail stiffened, and his low growl reverberated in the silence of the canyon. "What is it, boy?" Corporal Hayes muttered. Stepping closer to Rex, the dog's alertness was palpable. Rex began to move with purpose, leading the team toward a narrow crack in the canyon's side. As they approached, the handler's heart began to race. There, tied to the jagged rocks, was a man. His face was battered, his clothes torn and caked with dirt. The Marine's body was slumped, lifeless in appearance. But as the team moved closer, Rex's growl deepened, signaling that the man was still alive. The handlers exchanged looks, unsure of what they were facing. The air felt heavier now, an unease hanging between the team members, broken only by Rex's sharp bark, demanding attention. This was no ordinary find. As the team approached the Marine, the air seemed to thicken, charged with uncertainty. Rex was already beside the Marine, pacing in tight circles, his eyes never leaving the man's slumped figure. Corporal Hayes crouched beside him, his hand resting on Rex's fur, silently urging the dog to stand down, but Rex was relentless. The Marine was tied to the canyon wall with thick ropes, his body battered and bloodied. His face was streaked with dirt and sweat, his eyes barely open, flickering with a faint hint of consciousness. "Can you hear me?" Corporal Hayes called gently, leaning closer to the Marine's face. There was no response. The Marine's skin was hot to the touch, feverish, a clear sign of dehydration. The rope marks were deep on his wrists, the skin raw and inflamed. As Hayes gently touched the Marine's shoulder, the man flinched, his eyes fluttering open just for a moment before closing again. "We need to get him out of here," Corporal Hayes muttered under his breath. But before he could react, another handler, Sergeant Daniels, scanned the surroundings. "We don't know who or what did this," he said, his voice grim. "We need to be careful. Could be a trap." The dogs circled cautiously, still on edge. It was clear to them, too. Something wasn't right. Rex's growl was soft but persistent, an almost warning tone that seemed to shake the handlers from their paralysis. The Marine's chest rose and fell in shallow, erratic breaths, his condition growing more critical by the second. Corporal Hayes and Sergeant Daniels exchanged a look. Time was running out. The Marine was alive, but barely. They had to act fast. "We're getting him out of here, now," Hayes commanded, urgency flooding his voice. Rex, as if sensing the shift in the mission, stood tall, his attention fully focused on the Marine. The tension in the air was palpable as Corporal Hayes and Sergeant Daniels worked to untie the ropes binding the Marine to the canyon wall. Their hands were steady, but their minds raced. The sun beat down on them relentlessly, and despite the urgency of the situation, Rex and the other K9s stood as still as statues, their bodies coiled with energy. The dogs weren't just observing. They were actively processing everything around them, their instincts guiding them. Rex, the German shepherd, was first to react. His ears perked up, his nose twitching as if trying to assess the environment. He circled the Marine protectively, standing between him and the handlers, his posture defensive yet full of focus. The bond between dog and handler was a well-oiled machine, but now it was something more. Rex wasn't just on duty. He was on alert, sensing the peril surrounding them. The other two dogs, a Belgian Malinois, and a Labrador Retriever, kept there. Distance but stayed close, their sharp eyes scanning the horizon. They had been trained for search and rescue, detection, and protection, but in this moment, they were more than just soldiers in training. They were guardians to A.S. Hayes carefully. Lifted the Marine's limp body into a sitting position, Rex nudged the man's side with his snout, a silent reassurance. The Marine's eyes flickered open once more, his gaze locking onto the dog. There was an unspoken exchange between them, a silent acknowledgement that, in this moment, the K9s were more than just rescuers. They were his lifeline. Rex remained by the Marine's side, his presence a steady source of comfort. The urgency was clear now. The Marine was slowly regaining his strength, but the time they had to save him was shrinking fast. It wasn't just about rescue anymore. It was about survival. With the Marine barely conscious, the team knew time was running out. Corporal Hayes motioned to Sergeant Daniels, signaling for them to move quickly. "We need to get him out of here, now," Hayes said firmly. The desert canyon was unforgiving, and every second spent there was a risk. As the team worked, Rex remained close, his eyes scanning the surroundings with unwavering intensity, while the other two K9s kept a watchful eye on the perimeter. The Marine, his chest still rising and falling in shallow breaths, seemed to be fading. His faint groans of pain sent a chill through Hayes's spine. Each movement seemed to sap what little strength he had left. With the ropes now removed, they struggled to support the Marine's limp body, but his condition was deteriorating fast. His skin, still hot from fever, felt almost like fire against Hayes's hands. "He's in bad shape," Sergeant Daniels muttered, sweat trickling down his face. "We need to get him medical help, and fast." But as they struggled to carry him toward the extraction point, the Marine's eyes fluttered open for a split second, locking onto Rex. In that fleeting moment, there was a brief, silent understanding. Between them, the dog's presence, steady and unwavering, seemed to give him a renewed sense of purpose. Rex leaned forward, nuzzling the Marine gently, as if telling him to hold on just a little longer. Then came the sound of rustling rocks. Something was wrong. The K9s, particularly Rex, tensed, their muscles taut as they prepared for whatever might come next. Was there someone else in the canyon? Were they being watched? The air seemed to grow heavier, but Rex stayed focused, keeping his place beside the Marine, a steadfast protector. The urgency was mounting, but Hayes and Daniels moved with precision. They knew the risks, but they also knew that without quick action, they might lose the Marine. Rex's growl broke the silence once more, his presence a constant reminder that there was more at play here than just the immediate danger. As the Marine was carefully moved toward the extraction point, every step seemed like a battle. The heat from the sun had drained what little strength was left in him, and his breathing grew more erratic with each shallow gasp. Yet, despite his weakening condition, something in his eyes had changed. There was a flicker of recognition, a silent bond between him and Rex that neither handler nor dog could ignore. The Marine, struggling to stay conscious, reached out a trembling hand, brushing the fur of Rex's head. Rex responded immediately, nuzzling the Marine's hand with a quiet whine. His eyes, usually sharp and focused on his mission, now softened. With a quiet understanding, the dog wasn't just offering comfort. He was offering his loyalty, his protection, and something the Marine needed more than ever: hope. Sergeant Daniels glanced at Hayes, his face a mixture of exhaustion and awe. "I've never seen him like this before," he said, his voice hoarse from the heat. "The Marine, he's fighting for something. It's like Rex is giving him a reason to keep going." Hayes didn't reply at first, his attention fully on the Marine, who seemed to have found a second wind in the dog's presence. They didn't speak much in those moments. Words were unnecessary. As they continued their perilous trek, the Marine's pain seemed to lessen, even if only momentarily. The comforting weight of Rex's presence gave him strength when there should have been none left. Hayes could feel the shift in the air, as though the bond between the dog and the Marine had become the unspoken lifeline that would pull them through. The dogs, especially Rex, had done more than simply help find the Marine. They had reminded everyone present that hope, loyalty, and trust could make all the difference in life and death situations.